my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the face shall be sight. The clouds we roll back as a scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds I entabling, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, I bar throughout the universe display. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And when I think that God is Son not sparing, sending to die, I scarce can take it in. That on the cross my burden gladly bearing, He bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. as an ensign fair be lifted up today, while his ransomed ones we sing. Marching on and on, marching on and on, for Christ count everything but loss, for the King of Kings who tore lands beneath the banner on the cross. Over land and sea, wherever man may dwell, make the glorious tidings known of the crimson banner. Now the story tell, while the Lord shall claim his own. Marching on and on, marching on and on, for Christ count everything but loss, for the King of Kings who tore lands beneath the banner on the cross. When the great commander from the vaulted sky sounds the resurrection day, then before our King the fainted foe shall die, and the saints shall march away. Marching on and on, marching on and on, for Christ count everything but loss, for the King of Kings who tore lands beneath the banner on the cross. Sing to me of heaven, sing that song of peace. From the toils that bind me it will bring release. Burdens will be lifted that are pressing so. Showers of great blessing o'er my heart will flow. Sing to me of heaven, let me fondly dream of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows of the evening fall. Sing to me of heaven's sweetest song of all. Sing to me of heaven as I walk alone, dreaming of the grass that so long has gone. In a fairer region among the angel throng, they are happy and tasting that old sweet song. Sing to me of heaven, let me fondly dream of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows of the evening fall. Sing to me of heaven's sweetest song of all. Sing to me of heaven tenderly and low, till the shadows o'er me rise and swiftly go. When my heart is weary, when the day is long, sing to me of heaven, sing that old sweet song. Sing to me of heaven, let me fondly dream of its golden glory, of its pearly gleam. Sing to me when shadows of the evening.
Okay. Hi, church. Good evening. Good to see people out there on the connection here, Facebook Live. I can see, I don't know how, that it looks like my thingamajig is tilted a bit. So I'm fussing on that just a little bit, but I'm going to quit messing with that right now because that's just silly. Good to see everyone. The numbers on tonight, that's fantastic. Welcome to Wednesday together. And I want to just mention a couple of things. So if you got here by way of a reminder with the email and maybe you went to the website and maybe you connected here, great. Or if you just saw the Facebook Live, then I'm going to share with you some of the things that I included in the website or in the email, and that is one, just trying to stay connected in the different ways that we are having to employ here. This web address there, just shorten that up, kearneychurch.us. My pun, right? I've said it before. Kearney Church is us. We can make that memorable. Go there and we can find our current bulletin, our Wednesday night information sheet, etc., as well as links to our YouTube channel. That's the word they use. It sounds a little snooty, doesn't it? Like just sitting here, I've got a channel. My point is there's a link there to YouTube and there's a link there to the Facebook connections. The important part of that is for Sunday morning and our times together that we are having to use this as a tool. There are links there. Also, and here's the next two things that I want to get to, is trying to employ a device called Calling Post. I know of other churches that use it very successfully, and for those that maybe not have email connections, this will reach by voice and by text. So if you're on here, maybe you've connected through the computer with the email and all those good things. Obviously, you're here on the internet. For our friends and loved ones that don't have that, if you think of somebody that could definitely benefit from the text or the voice connection, let me know. We're going through the directory to get that information first. And we've already used it some, but I don't mind asking for help. So if you think of a way that we could make better connections. And then the other thing that was in today's midweek email, and there's a link now on our that members page, is to the application. I'm sure you've heard about it. Maybe you've used it for work. Maybe you've used it with family connections. Zoom. And the link is simply on that members page, or you can find it. It's also a .us connection, zoom.us, and downloads specifically, and it's free. Mentioned that in the email, especially to say it's free. So download that. It's called the client version. That's the part that you just say, "Hey, here I am." And we're working with an account here. And so we're going to use that for some upcoming connections. Sunday school, maybe not Sunday school, but I mean Bible school class type connections. So, I just kicked the legs under that camera. So you shook. I apologize. It's that me. I apologize. All right. So, good to see the numbers on that on the screen that I'm looking at there, and so glad to see you connecting. Also, like we've said on Sunday morning, it was so neat to watch Sunday morning the comments and the connections. You can connect to one another at least a little bit on the Facebook live platform there, where you can comment back and forth, and you can see what one another is saying. And so I really appreciate that people are connecting that way. I'm going to try to raise that. Okay, there we go. There we go. In our Look at the Book study series, we are in Ecclesiastes, and hopefully you've been reading through this week to be a part of that. I really appreciated at the end of our interview format last week with the discussion of Proverbs. Yes, trying to do something a little different each week. I really appreciated what Chuck said at the end of that conversation. He said, this reading together is one more way that we can be together. We're doing something together, even though we're far apart. We're scattered and not able to be together in a large group at this time. So that's a shameless plug, but I'm using Chuck's words. I just love that. To join in the reading. So this week, Ecclesiastes. Next week, so on tap for next week is 2 Kings. And that's in our reading schedule, if you got that at the beginning of the study. And that's coming out in the mailed out bulletin as well. Also, then I'm going to move on. Right here, there's a link to all of the study guides. So the look at the book, at least where we've been so far. Right. So the Look at the Book study series is linked there in the kearneychurch.us, our members page. So you're welcome to go there and pick that up and get the Ecclesiastes link there if you don't have it in front of you. All right, so a quick overview or a quick look at Ecclesiastes. When we start a book, I like to do authorship and background, and vast majority of people attribute Ecclesiastes to Solomon. I want to say one thing. I've been a part of scholarly gatherings where sometimes it seems like people study get into the details of the literature study so deep that they do everything they can to prove how common wisdom is wrong because they found something new. And what I'm saying on that is there are a few that dissent that say, well, it had to have been somebody other than Solomon. Think of a couple of phrases. Usually they point to the first chapter and the last chapter, and they point to the tense and the wording and okay. So the vast majority of it was written by Solomon, and maybe there was some editor that helped out or that wrote part of the introduction or started the book, or wrote some in the last chapter as well. Okay, why not? We could grant that. But inside Ecclesiastes, we say who wrote it, authorship and background. We say, well, what's on the inside, internally? What do we say? What do we find in the book? Well, son of David. Of course, in the Hebrew terminology, any descendant of David would have been called a son of David. But the greatest in Jerusalem, and none before me and none greater before me, or something like that. Okay. I like to say, well, no, who am I? I like to agree with the majority of the scholarship on that and say, yeah, son of David and no greater in Jerusalem ever before, Solomon. Pretty easy. And then you get the tone as we read through the book, and we say, wow, who thought up all this stuff? Well, Solomon, who set out to explore the world with the wealth and greatness that he had, of reputation, etc. We could understand how Solomon can reach some of the conclusions, make some of the statements that we find in Ecclesiastes. What else? Okay, the title even, as we look at this, the Hebrew title for the book that we call Ecclesiastes in our Old Testament would have been Koholeth, and that says the preacher. And so that's where we get a lot of the introduction, where the preacher says, or so forth. The teacher says. Moved into the Greek translators used ecclesia. Okay, pop quiz. I've used that a lot in our teaching. Where have we heard the term, I'll say it the way we normally say it, ecclesia? Where have we heard that used in our teaching? Where have we used that in the last few years as we've been studying together? TikTok, talk amongst yourselves. Think about that. I know, silly. Jesus says, I will build my, right? In the New Testament, we see references where Jesus is talking to his students, and he says, on this rock, I will build my, and the word he uses is ecclesia. It wasn't until generations later that the word church as we know it, it's even a German sounding word, because it is, was brought into the translations. Ecclesia, it's a word that, the Greek word that Jesus used, simply means gathering, the gathering. And now let's put those two things together. And this is, I'm stealing this straight off of our study guide, right? So if you've got that handy, you can look at the background on the first page. So the Koholeth and ecclesia. So the preacher or the teacher, Koholeth, really refers to one who calls the assembly together. And that's how the Greek translation would have brought in the gathering or the ecclesia. Okay, so what do we do with that? Just to reference this again, here we have the teacher or the one who calls the assembly together, referencing the teachings, some proverbs, some additional proverbs, and some experiences that Solomon shares with us here. Okay, good enough. My point is, I'm satisfied. Hope you are too. Solomon, author, at least for most of Ecclesiastes. And so let's take a look. Chapter 1. Where did I put chapter 1? There's chapter 1. Chapter 1, verse 1, just in the beginning. So we have this, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Even there, just verse 1, there's our reference to, that we've cited, part of our reference that we've cited connecting to Solomon. Okay, what does he say, this teacher? Meaningless, right? So you've read this. Hopefully you've read it this week. Maybe not, but maybe you've read this before. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Not the happiest book in the good book, right? Meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors, at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever turning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations. Okay, verse 11, the end of this section. Here's where he starts to describe this meaningless, right? No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. It's a big part of the thinking that flows out into the next several chapters. But yeah, not real cheery as he begins this, as we begin Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Meaningless, says the teacher. Have you ever thought that? Have you ever thought that about life? Maybe everyday life, maybe when something significant happens, maybe when you find a certain season of life come your way. Have you ever thought, what's the point? Well, there's a strong expression of that here, meaningless. I want to let that unfold for us here as we take a look at Solomon's words. There are some themes that crop up through here, or crop up. It's not a good way to say it. There are some themes that we can see grouped together as we read through this. Even in chapter 1, where he introduces us to meaningless, he says, look at the eye's always looking, the ears are always hearing, but it's just meaningless. So the sea, the rivers flow to the sea, but the sea's never full, and the water goes back somehow. It just keeps going. This earth just keeps going. He says, what's happening from moment to moment is meaningless. Okay. One, I've already asked. You ever felt that way? And then two, he says, towards the end of this, he says, is there anything of which one can say, look, something new? Now, think about that one. So let's work on that together. I'll bet, if you've lived long enough to think, well, I've seen quite a bit of this life, you've had an opportunity to experience something in life, I'll bet, where you have said, well, yeah, right, nothing new there. Maybe you see it in the unfolding of world events. Now these things are pretty... we keep saying this is strange times we live in. I know. But maybe you see things that happen on the world stage and you say, well, yeah, that's just like sometime in history. Or maybe even in your lifetime. Well, yeah, that's like when I was a kid. Or have you ever even thought, as you watch people go through life and you see things happen, maybe in friends and neighbors, maybe in family, maybe in yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror some mornings and say, oh, I've done that before. Yeah. When we've seen life events occur again and again, sometimes you can look, maybe it's easier to look at someone else's life and say, oh, I know where they're headed. Wait, don't do that. I've seen that before. Wait, I've done that before. Right? Well, as Solomon says, there's nothing new. It's hard to say, gee, look, I've never seen this before, or this is brand new. It's hard to see those things in this world because so many things that happen in human events and in human life and in our own experience are things that happen. And they've happened before to other people. Okay, enough of that. That's part of what Solomon introduces for us in chapter 1. One, these things just keep going, and two, there's nothing new. I like to dig into a key phrase that he uses again and again, and I really see this as sort of the thesis statement of Solomon's entire work, the 12 chapters as we read together, as we read through Ecclesiastes, where he says, even in the beginning, what do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? There's a theme that reoccurs throughout all of his exclamation about his experience in life. And Solomon says, chapter 1, verse 9, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. We could move into chapter 3. Furthermore, I've seen under the sun that in a place of justice there is wickedness, and in the place of righteousness there is wickedness in this world. And he says, under the sun, where there should be good, there is evil. Where there is evil, there is sometimes good. Under the sun, it's meaningless. Chapter 2, verse 20, therefore I completely despaired at all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored under the sun. Work? What's the point? Wisdom, key theme for Solomon, to go after wisdom under the sun, meaningless. The futility that's there, pleasure, laughter, wine, sensuality, work, loving of work, but being disillusioned by what we do. And Solomon comes back to every theme under the sun. For who knows what is good for man during his lifetime, during the few years of his futile life, chapter 6, verse 12, he will spend them like a shadow. For who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? As I started, real cheery. But that theme, under the sun, I kind of like to use that as we look at Ecclesiastes and say, Solomon takes a look at life there, right? Up to this level, under the sun. What is life under the sun? And we'll take that as a metaphor for everything above our experience, everything above the sun, everything above our world, everything out of our experience is God's realm. That's how Solomon would have thought about that. And he says, you know what? Without God, without following him, without connecting to him, without doing it his way, life is meaningless. Under the sun, the toil, the work, the effort. Why? Under the sun, it just happens again, day after day. There's nothing new. It's meaningless. Under the sun, pursuing love. Why? Someone will betray, someone will be hurt. Under the sun, it's meaningless. Pursuit of wisdom, under the sun. Without God, under the sun, meaningless. I get him. Don't you? We just asked a few minutes ago, you've had that experience, right? You've seen it all before. You've seen this happen again, or happen before. I mean, sometimes we'll say, I've seen this movie before. That's Solomon's point. Under the sun, without God, meaningless. Meaningless. Chapter 12. And I said this is one of those where we get more of a third person, so maybe this was an added, an additional author. Okay, fine. But let's find out what the conclusion is. Solomon put together the discussion about work and effort and love and sensuality and joy and pleasure. And Solomon wrote about the difficulties of life or the pleasures of life or the pursuit of life or the pursuit of wisdom. What is the conclusion? Chapter 12. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Rock solid principles, they're nailed down. They're like a shepherd caring for his flock, right? My son, they said, my son, careful. Don't think of anything else. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. That's how he ends. All has been heard. The conclusion of the matter is this: fear God and keep his commandments. Think of those things that you've seen again and again in this life. Those things that you have said, oh, I've seen this before. Those things that you've said, there's nothing new. Those things that perhaps you have even wondered, what's the point? They're mostly lacking something, aren't they? Solomon says, the conclusion of the matter is fear God and keep his commandments. There we are. We made it. 7:30 to 8. We made it through our class time. Thanks for joining in. It was fun to see the people who chimed in and the numbers across the screen. I appreciated being with you tonight. Bless you. You're loved more than you know. Have a great week. The rest of this.
Who is doing so much for me? With my joy I tell the story of the love that makes me free. Till my earthly life is ended, I will sing songs above them beside the crystal sea. More and more my soul shall be praising Jesus and his love. He is everything to me, to me. He is everything to me, and everything shall always be. I will never cease to raise a song of gladness in his praise. And in the world above, my soul shall sing of saving love. Life and pride enjoy to see the precious friend who died for me. Glory be to him forever. Endless praises to Christ the Lamb. He has filled my life with sunshine. He has made me what I am. Oh, that everyone would know him. Oh, that all would trust the love of the mighty friend above and be his forevermore. It's a song of gladness in His praise. And in the world above, my soul shall sing of saving love. Life and light and joy to see the precious friend, guarded for life.